Hi everyone and welcome to Digital Shift, a segment by Biznomics where we explore how businesses are harnessing the power of technology as we uncover stories of forward-thinking enterprises and their tech-driven solutions. Today, we're sitting down in conversation with Channa de Silva, the CEO of LankaPay, as well as Dinuka Perera, the Deputy CEO of LankaPay, to learn about their illustrious journey within the country, as well as some exciting news for the future. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So to start off this conversation, I would like to ask you, now Sri Lanka being a cash economy, how difficult was it to introduce digital payments to the country, especially in the more rural areas? What was the uptake like?
The beginning, it wasn't that easy, but I think the real catalyst was COVID. What actually happened was when you don't get a chance to get cash, and when you don't have a chance, people opt for alternatives. So during COVID, they did not have access to cash, and only option was going digital and doing it from home or wherever they were. Since we had all the instruments and modes of payments available in digital, they were able to shift. So that actually really was the catalyst really in terms of digital enablement in Sri Lanka in terms of the payments. However, we still have a problem with cash, because if you really look at the numbers of these are actually from the publication from Central Bank called the Payments Bulletin. The latest publication is Q2 2023. As per that, we still have 1.1 trillion cash in circulation, and 845 billion of that is in the hands of public. 75% is in the hands of public and only 25% in the banks. So still a lot of cash is with public, and our journey is how to move all of these people, at least a majority of them, into digital. And I think we have got a good start with COVID, but I think we still have a long way to go.
That's very interesting. Dinuka, do you have any contributions to it as well?
Just to add to what Channa said, we have had the products to take cash out of circulation in terms of introducing digital products all along. But the challenge has been that the uptake of citizens or embracing these digital products. So our direct customers, the products that we introduce are through the banks, but these products are consumed by the citizens. So our customers are banks and our consumers are the citizens. So we always work through the financial institutions to introduce these products. So to answer your question specifically in terms of uptake in the rural areas, like Channa said, it can still further improve. But with the central bank, with our banking system, we are continuously working somehow to take these products to the masses, especially in the rural areas.
So one additional challenge that we foresaw was basically the language barrier. So when we looked at, because the technology to go to rural masses, they need to access it from whatever means that they are comfortable with. So when we looked at the ATM usage, we saw nearly 70% of the people were using ATMs using Sinhala and Tamil menus, because obviously they are scared to do a financial transaction in a language which they are not comfortable with. The bigger challenge we are having is all the technology that go to rural places should be in trilingual. Some of them have enabled trilingual, but some are not. So I think that we have to overcome this barrier if you are to go rural.
Definitely. That sounds very interesting, and it's definitely something to consider in the future as well. Now, speaking of your partnership with the central bank, tell us about how the central bank has worked towards popularizing digital payments in Sri Lanka and how LankaPay has associated very closely to make this a reality.
I think this journey started some years ago when central bank launched something called a National Payment Council. And they put out a payment system roadmap, which had milestones, which had solutions, which were solutions to problems of people, how to get address different problems. Now for example, if we are to go digital, one of the fundamental problems is what is the instrument that they are going to use, right? So in Sri Lanka, the most prevailing instrument as far as we can see is the mobile phone. The mobile phone penetration was roughly about 160% of the population, right? So pretty much everyone has a mobile. Out of that, nearly 50% are smartphones, right? So what we felt was smartphone was the way to go. In that sense, our thinking was somebody who has a smartphone has a better chance of going digital than somebody who has a analog or feature phone, right? So we were targeting that. In that sense, central bank had several milestones, and those milestones were also catered to different market requirements, right? Now, for example, we want people to go digital, but the fact of the matter is, are they ready to go digital, right? So in that sense, now we have had cards, debit and credit cards in the market, international debit and credit cards for like 2 decades. We have about close to 100,000 point of sale terminals spread across the country. But when we looked at the numbers, we saw that the average transactions, debit or credit transactions put together per POS terminal per day was less than 4.
Is that so?
Right?
Why is that?
So because a lot of people have cards, but they were not doing financial transactions. They were just going to the ATM to withdraw cash, rather than doing transactions using that, right? So we saw few problems. One problem was the lack of terminals available. Now, for example, even though we say nearly 100,000 terminals, majority are them in large shops, supermarkets and others, whereas large hundreds of thousands of small shops like the retail shops, they don't have a terminal. So even if a consumer has a card, they can't make a payment because the merchant doesn't have a terminal. So we had to break that barrier. So that is where part of the central bank roadmap, we introduced the QR, which is just a sticker at the merchant and there's no cost to the merchant. All a consumer needs is a smartphone. The second barrier was, like when we were trying to popularize digital payments, we need to look at the market dynamics, right? So for example, I take an example, a three-wheeler guy, right? We probably use Pick Me or Uber or some ride-sharing app to get the three-wheeler, which is using a smartphone. But when we are trying to do a payment using the smartphone, maybe through a credit card or an account-based payment, the driver doesn't want to accept the payment if it's not in cash, right? Why is this? Because the problem is, end of the day, the person has to go and either buy petrol or buy groceries or go to the fair to buy vegetables. They need cash. They can't do digitally because the end merchant, we can't actually call them merchants. For example, the lady who sells vegetables at the Sunday fair, is an individual. And that person is not going to have a POS terminal or any other instrument to make digital payment. So these guys want cash, and if we pay digital, they have to go to an ATM and withdraw cash and go. So that's why majority of them don't want to accept digital payments, because they need cash at the end of the day. So only way to overcome this is to get those micro merchants, if you will, also into digital. So the problem is, if you go and ask the lady at the Sunday fair to buy a point of sale terminal, which cost about 100,000, that's it won't happen, right? So the best thing is put a sticker there, which you don't need power, you don't need electricity, you don't need anything, there's no cost, and a consumer to come and scan that and make a payment, the funds will go to that person's bank account, right? Even a three-wheeler guy can go and buy, and because he or she has the three-wheeler guys have a smartphone, because now they are accepting Uber and Pick Me rides. So they have a smartphone, so they can use the same So the problem was the cycle broke down previously, where these guys needed cash in between. So now if we solve that problem of they don't need cash anymore because they can also make a digital payment, then the cycle will compete, and actually the whole system will work. So that is where we need to get all these different segments into the digital ecosystem. Otherwise, it's going to stop somewhere. I think that's what we have seen. So the central bank payments bulletin, so the payments roadmap caters to these different types of requirements. So there had been tremendous support from central bank to roll these out. And also getting LankaPay to develop these solutions, and also working with the banks to take them to market. So there had been a lot of support coming from central bank, and part of their initiatives is also to reduce cash in the market. You need to look at why you should reduce cash from the market. It's very simple. Cash is a significant cost to an economy, because to print, distribute, recycle, provide security, transport, all that costs an economy roughly about 1.5% of GDP, right?
Oh,
in a country like Sri Lanka, we spend only 2% on entire education, and we are wasting 1.5% on cash. So if we are able to take maybe half a percent out of the 1.5% of cash cost out, then we can use that. 0.5% of GDP can do a lot of social benefits and other things. So there is a significant economic benefit if we take cash out. So that is also one fundamental reason why we should move people. But then we need to provide means. So the means are coming from different initiatives that are initiated by central bank, and also we have been part of those.
Lovely. And how has the success of these QR codes been so far?
It can further improve. It has not been a resounding success yet, and we endeavor day in and day out to somehow make QR codes popular amongst the masses. We started the QR initiative about 3 years back. We have over 350,000 QR codes at merchant outlets, but the number of transactions where people pay using the QR codes have been not that great. So we are also looking at what are the things we can do further to popularize QR codes. You may have heard some time back we had campaigns like Cash Wade, Ratapurama QR. These are initiatives from the central bank, from LankaPay, as well as the financial institutions to go out to the masses to make them aware of this as a payment method and what are the benefits it has for both the merchant and you as a consumer. Now, if you visit countries like India, China, you would see that cash is almost not there anymore, even the most rural part of the country. But in Sri Lanka, cash is still the king. So one of the main trusts even the central bank with LankaPay has is to popularize QR codes in the country.
So one of the areas why we want to popularize QR codes is also when previously, especially the small time merchants, when they were accepting card payments, there was a commission charge, what we call the MDR, charged by the banks from the merchant, that used to range around 3 to 3.5%. So if you take a small time retailer who sells a loaf of bread, probably the profit from that may be 5%. So he doesn't want to give 3 to 3.5% of that to a bank. So that was a deal breaker. So he was asking for cash, right? So they would not accept, even if they had a POS terminal, they didn't want to accept a card payment. So we understood that, and we actually brought the commission of QR payments down to 0.5%.
Amazing.
Right? So in that sense, now we can actually reach to the smallest merchant or the individuals who's selling vegetables or who's selling coconuts, right, or king coconuts, right, and they can also come into the ecosystem because there's no investment on their side because it's just a sticker, and also a consumer can pay, and also in terms of a cost is 0.5% of the transaction, so which is not a deal breaker. So we think that this is the way forward. And also what we are looking at is, since the uptake of consumer has not been great, so we have actually brought in some other international players. Now that we have more than 350,000 merchants enabled, the tourists that come to Sri Lanka, they are already familiar with QR. So for them to actually make QR payments so that the wider adoption will happen, when the tourists are using, the local consumers will also start using, and then also the merchants will start seeing the benefits of these type of payments. So because if nobody is using, they are not going to continue to use that in the as we go on. So we are looking at different ways and means. I think hopefully we feel that we have got the right formula, and hopefully we will be able to make better inroads in the future.
Wonderful. Good luck with that. Changing the perception of the public is a mammoth task, and it's amazing what you guys are doing. Now, LankaPay has been revolutionizing payment systems in Sri Lanka for 10 years now, ever since the launch of Common Card and Payment Switch in 2013. Tell us, how has that journey been? What was it like kind of evolving with the company as well?
Company started as LankaClay in 2002 for the purpose of clearing interbank checks. That's why the Lanka Clear name came in, and then later on, actually once we got into payments, the name changed to LankaPay. So we were the second in the world to launch one-day check clearing, automated check clearing behind Singapore. That was in 2006. And then what actually happened was, once we formulated the check clearing solution, there were a lot of requirements. For example, the ATM connectivity, because a person had to go to their own ATM to withdraw cash, and especially in most rural areas, there was only 1 or 2 ATMs, and they had to go a long way, where they had access to a different bank's ATM close by. So that is where we actually, through the common payment switch, we connected all the ATMs in the country so that a customer of one bank could go to an ATM of another bank and withdraw cash or check their bank balances. And then we moved into payments in terms of making bulk payments. For example, a lot of people used to get their salaries in checks or cash previously. Now 60 to 70% of the salaries are actually going to the bank account. For that, we introduced a system called slips, which is basically same day payment. So you ask the bank to deposit that money in the morning. By afternoon, the salaries are deposited into the account of the employees, and this system basically caters to about nearly 60 to 70% of salaries paid in Sri Lanka. Then actually what we realized was, that also, especially when you come to the current business situation, you need real-time payment. So that's when we, in 2015, we established a real-time payment switch, which we call CEFs for short, where you can now transfer funds from one bank to another bank instantaneously, just at a click of a button. So that's where the real-time payments, and the real-time payments has been a revolution. You can actually just pay a bill, or you can make a payment to somebody while traveling, which previously unheard of, right? It has become so convenient in terms of some of these solutions coming in, and especially also with the wider adoption of the smartphone, and things have become much more simpler and easier for people to use.
Definitely. Well, from the Sri Lanka public to you, thank you so much for making our lives so much more convenient. Dinuka, anything from your end?
So if you look at our journey from T+1 or same day or the next day check clearing into the instant payments, which you will receive via slips on the same day or the next day, then to CEFs, which are instant payments, and then mobile payments, you would see that we have introduce systems to make payments faster and faster. Now it's real time, right? So our vision and the mission personifies what we do. Our vision is, it goes something like, in everything we do, we value your time. So it's by introducing products which are innovative, simpler, faster and secure. So we want to make sure our citizens reap the benefits of the digital payments, and by doing so provides that convenience to the citizens and slowly take cash out of circulation.
And actually our larger purpose as an organization is what we call financial inclusivity. That is to bring marginalized communities in rural sector into the formal financial ecosystem. Because right now they don't have access to a lot of the facilities that are in Western province, for example. So unless we bring them onto these technologies and digital forms, they will remain as using cash. Even if they make 100,000, 200,000 a month as revenue, they cannot get even 50,000 loan from a bank, because the bank doesn't know their income, because it's all in cash in, cash out, right? So only option they have is they have to go to a loan shark, or what we call polymodalalis, and get loans at 50-60%. They don't have any other choice. But what happens is, once they move digital, their transactions get recorded in their bank, and the bank would know, okay, this person is making 100,000, 200,000 revenue. Over a 6 months period, they will start building a credit history with the bank, and after that period, bank can confidently give a loan of 50,000, 100,000 to improve their business. So we are actually addressing a social problem if we get these marginalized communities into formal financial sector, and technology can do that and will do that. The benefit that will come to an economy is massive in that sense, especially when you are looking at the rural sector.
Most definitely. And like you rightfully said, I think LankaPay has touched every single Sri Lankan's lives by this point. How has LankaPay kind of revolutionized payments for SMEs, corporations and consumers' lives also?
If you take corporations, right, the real-time payments is widely in use for a lot of different payments, right? Where supplier payments to, we have also automated customs payments, inland revenue, ports authority. So previously, if you had to clear a good from customs, good that is imported from customs, you had to go to a bank before 3 o'clock and get a pay order, and not on only on weekdays. Now with the system, even on a Sunday midnight, they can actually make a real-time payment, and they would get a receipt on their device, and they can actually get the goods cleared. So it has gone to that level. So we are seeing wider adoption. Ports, Sri Lanka ports actually put a mandate saying they will only accept electronic payments. So we are seeing a lot of payments going there, inland revenue, and so on. The adoption will come if you provide them options, right? So, but when you look at a consumer perspective, mobile payments are the way forward, because especially thanks to COVID, we saw a lot of phones going into even rural sectors. So the phones are becoming widely available, and that at least for the foreseeable future, we feel that is going to be the instrument where a consumer will communicate, whether it's a financial transaction or any other transaction. So in that sense, we have a good channel to the market, to end consumer. So mobile payments. So we are seeing, banks have certain payments in place, but we are seeing a lot of fintech players coming into the market. We saw the ride sharing market, like when Uber came to Sri Lanka, there was a local player called PickMe who actually is providing a digital service, and they brought the whole ecosystem of three-wheelers and vehicles into an ecosystem where the financial transaction used to happens even now. So we have launched a pilot project with 14 government departments, small departments like Pradeshiya Sabhas, where you can just simply use your phone and pay your rates to your municipal council, wherever it is, right? Once we give people more and more options to go digital, we feel that they will shift. So right now, when the options are limited, they would prefer to use cash. But when you have wider options available, we would see more and more people, especially when we see the younger generation, like the Gen Zs coming into market, they opt for digital. But for them to opt for digital, they need to have the instruments in place, also payment modes, and also the billers that they can actually pay digital. So we need to bring this entire ecosystem, not only the businesses, also the consumers, because the consumers are customers of businesses. For organizations to accept payments, they need to have digital, and the consumers also need to be tech savvy, as well as they should be equipped with digital channels to make those payments. So I think when we bring all this together, only it'll succeed. Because if you just bring piecemeal, then it won't work.
Yeah, I think like Channa said. For the corporate sector, the LankaPay online payment platform, where we facilitate online payments to government organizations, has been a revelation. We do over billions of worth of transactions a day, a month through these systems. So you can imagine the convenience it brings. For example, let's say 30th November is the deadline to pay your taxes. If you had to pay it manually by a check or a bank draft, you had to go to a bank branch before probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon to get the bank draft. Then you have to take that and deposit in, possibly in Bank of Ceylon or People's Bank, where the Department of Inland Revenue has their accounts. But here, through the system that we have introduced, until almost midnight on that particular day, without paying a penalty, from the comfort of your home or your business, you can make this payment online. It just takes few seconds. So for the corporate sector, I believe our product, LankaPay online payment platform, has been a tremendous success, which has facilitated a lot of payments across these organizations. For the SMEs, the Lanka QR, where, like Channa said, you can do the transactions digitally, receive transactions digitally for a fraction of a cost as to what you would have paid for a POS machines. But I'm sure you would have also come across this experience now, people, when we want to pay something, and I'm sure you have also experienced now people asking you to make payments to their account, do a fund transfer. So people are also getting used to now it is not really cash, but you can online also make fund transfers.
For sure. I think we have a very solid ecosystem in place. The challenge is to get people to recognize the convenience and the ease of using these systems, right? Amazing. All right, so very evidently, LankaPay is more than just a card network. What would you say has contributed most towards your success?
Yeah, so card is only one mode of payment, right? So cards, as I said previously, cards have been here for like 2 decades, and we did not really see the significant uptake for almost 2 decades, and certainly COVID helped, so even the card transactions have increased, right? So we have roughly about 2 million credit cards in the market and nearly about 18.5 million debit cards in the market, right? So what it actually means is Sri Lanka is a well-banked country, right? So because when you say 18.5 million, what is the population of Sri Lanka? 22 million. Yeah. But it's only the debit cards issued. But when you really look at the number of bank accounts actually the banks have opened, it's more than 35 million.
Is it?
Right?
Wow.
So pretty much everybody who needs to do a transaction has a bank account. Even though people have an account, they don't deposit money into that account, right? Like as I said, people deal in cash outside the banking system and they don't deposit money. So our challenge is to get people to use. So the easiest way is, because for example, if you are to deploy millions of point of sale terminals to all these small time merchants, it's cost prohibitive. Because what actually happens, especially also due to the exchange crisis, exchange depreciation, the cost of a terminal, which used to be about 40 to 50,000, now go on more than 100,000. So most of the small time merchants can't afford a point of sale terminal, right? So the way forward is, so the beauty of QR is the merchant doesn't need a smartphone. Merchant only needs a regular feature phone even just to receive an SMS saying that funds were received in his or her account. Right. Only the consumer needs a smartphone, right? So in that sense, most consumers, we would feel, at least especially who are willing to do a digital transaction, would have a smartphone, right? So I think the technology piece is also getting resolved. Now, one of the fundamental problems for Sri Lanka, when you compare to other countries, if you take, say, a place like Africa, they have a system called M-Pesa, where it's mobile money. Okay. So we also had mobile money through two telcos previously, right? So it flourished in Africa for one simple reason. Because in Africa, you don't get banks very close by, right. ATMs close by. So getting access to cash was very difficult. Sometimes they had to travel 500 miles to get to an ATM or a bank, right? So when they introduced mobile money, they had an option at their fingertips to do a transaction. So they had, embraced it. But in Sri Lanka, when you walk out of the house, there's an ATM, right? Wherever you go, there's an ATM or a bank, and any time of the day you can withdraw cash. So getting access to cash was not so difficult in our context. So people were used to using cash. And so, as you said initially, changing consumer behavior is the most difficult part. So if you are to move them away from cash, you have to give them a simpler option than using cash. Because using cash is not so difficult. You just give the money, you get the change and go, right? It's not most cases it's not a deal breaker, but you have to provide the right use cases for consumers to shift. So that's what we are looking at, the right use cases for consumers, like the government payments, and which the hassle is not actually making the physical payment, but going there, filling a form, waiting in the queue, and all that is the hassle. Now, and what is the minimum bus fare? It's 30 rupees minimum bus fare. So even if you go the minimum distance up and down, it's 60 rupees, right? So that again, it's a cost, right? So if you can do it from the comfort of your home or the office or wherever you are, then you don't even need to travel to do this. So if you provide that level of convenience, we feel people will start. So it's not just getting the digital transaction, but also providing better life experience for consumers, then they will shift. So I think that is sort of what we are looking at, and we are sort of hoping that this will be the game changer for changing the consumer behavior.
Definitely. Dinuka, what would you say has contributed towards LankaPay's success over the years?
I believe that we have understood the requirement in terms of how we can promote digital payments in Sri Lanka and slowly take cash out of circulation. That has been the mandate, and like central bank is also owns part of us. So in terms of the ownership structure also, we have a very unique ownership structure where all the commercial banks operating in Sri Lanka, including international banks, own us, like our direct customers. So when we envision products that we want to take to the market, we look at what is required by the consumers, the citizens, the businesses, and understanding that requirement, and also keeping in mind what we can contribute towards taking cash out of circulation is what I believe that has contributed to our success. I think there's a long way to go, but we have, as a company, we have grown tremendously under Channa's leadership. And central bank, if I take that central bank payment roadmap, more than 90% of the initiatives that in that roadmap are centered around LankaPay. So all that central bank wants to launch into the market is launched mainly through us. So there are a number of other initiatives also coming up, like soon you will hear about a shared KYC, which we have been given the responsibility to launch across the banks. So I believe that's the secret behind our success, and we are a very small organization in terms of the staff, just over 100 people. We have a very committed staff. They are passionate about what they do, and whatever we do, we feel that it's a national service that we do. It touches everyone in Sri Lanka. So you don't get that sense of fulfillment in some jobs. You will work for a particular organization, but it is only for that organization. But here I believe our staff, the corporate management and our board of directors, they all see the value of what we do, and that drives us.
Yeah, actually I think one of the things that we have understood from a consumer requirement, actually payment is not the primary requirement of a consumer. They are consuming a service, and to pay for that service they need to make a payment. So which is a byproduct of a service. I'll take a simple example. If you want to travel from A to B, you need a vehicle. It's a tuk-tuk or a taxi, right? So the primary requirement is from going to A to B. But once you use, say, maybe a ride-sharing service or a taxi service, then you need to make a payment. Then the payment is the byproduct of that requirement. So the byproduct should be seamless. So that's where we have seen. That's why we are partnering with some of these players, digital players who are providing digital services and integrating a payment seamlessly, so the consumer doesn't need to think when they are making a payment, because that's something that should happen. Without a hassle, right? So we are integrating with the existing services in the market, so that payment portion becomes seamless, and they can do it without going to the bank, withdrawing cash or other things. So that is going to be the success, where we will have more and more digital services coming into the market, and when more and more consumers start consuming, they will certainly look for digital, right? Because you don't want to consume a digital service and go to the bank and withdraw cash and make a cash payment. If you are consuming a digital service, you would want the payment to also be digital, right? So that way we feel the consumer behavior will also change when we offer more and more digital services. And in terms of some of the consumers, they are actually looking for different types of solutions, right? Now for example, some of these consumers may not even know that certain technology can help their problems. Yeah. Now, if you take the ride sharing, previously we never thought we would use Pick Me or Uber to order a three-wheeler. Yeah. You will come to the road and put your hand out and get a three-wheeler. Yeah. But when Uber and Pick Me came to market, then consumers realized that the convenience of that, and whenever you need something you can get it to your home, then they started consuming. So there are few apps which are actually revolutionary, like Pick Me is one. And there's this app called LankaPay, or Helakuru, which was actually a local Sinhala keyboard, right? And we saw there were about 10 million downloads, and we saw there were about 4 million active users. And their next integration was integrating a payment into that. So when they integrate a payment, they have a 4 million active customer base which they can immediately shift, and small time payments, right? And very recently they have introduced Hela Chat, where something similar to WeChat, you can chat in Sinhala language, and they have integrated a payment through the chat as well. So when more and more digital services come into market, they will consume more and more digital payments, and our role will be to be the facilitator and provide these seamless payment options for these consumers who consume digital services.
That sounds incredible. Now, you have made such an impact in Sri Lanka itself, but in great news, LankaPay is now expanding to a global market. Tell us about your global journey and what kind of impact this has for the local merchants, consumers, all of us.
Yeah, I think our journey of going global really started with the financial crisis. COVID was the biggest problem, and then also the financial crisis. So what we felt was we had to contribute to this. So that's when actually Central Bank wanted us to launch something to improve remittances. So that's where we launched an app called Lanka Remit, where seamlessly somebody from outside can make a payment to a local financial institution at a reduced cost. So that has been in operation for now a couple of years, right? The second option was we saw the tourists that were coming from the largest segments of the tourists were coming from India and China. And most of these tourists were used to, in their own countries, used to making payments digitally, especially using a QR. So what we saw was, if we can enable these tourists to come to Sri Lanka, since we have more than 350,000 merchant base, as long as the tourist hotspots have these facilities available, they would be comfortable because they are already used to that, in using and by doing so, we would seamlessly bring foreign exchange into the country. Now, what actually happens is sometimes this money goes through informal channels. They go and get cash from informal channels, and they use cash. They exchange cash to rupees to dollars and other currencies. But if the transfer comes through formal channels of a banking system, then the funds will actually come in foreign exchange to the country. So in that sense, we started integrating with UnionPay of China, NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India, who have actually, their payment networks in those countries. Actually, we are working with Nepal, largest QR acquirer in Nepal, who has about 1.2 million QR merchants in Nepal, integrate so that they can start using our QR for payments. Even in China, Alipay actually approached us because there are a large amount of Alipay users worldwide. Then WeChat. So all these tourists that are coming in, if we facilitate transactions, them to do digital transaction, since we have the QR deployed and they are familiar with QR, our first step is to enable QR payments for these tourists, so that one side we will facilitate QR transactions. The second one is we will attract foreign exchange, and when the tourists start using digital payments in local businesses, slowly but surely the local domestic users will also start seeing the benefit, and the merchants will also start seeing the benefit. So our journey globally will always be linked to Sri Lankan benefit to our economy and the country. Recently we became members of what's called the Asian Payment Network, where 12 countries have come together to form an alliance where through a hub right now located in Thailand, where we can do instant payments across these 12 countries, across the different payment networks. So our effort is, if we can get these 12 networks connected, and it will be seamless payments across all these countries efficiently and cost effectively. So that is also part of our journey, and hopefully within the next couple of years, I think we will get all these things going, so that from economic benefit, the country will actually start getting the benefit of moving into digital.
So what has been interesting is some of these global players have reached out to us without we going and looking for them.
Your reputation precedes yourself.
Exactly. So that's heartening to see, because it shows that they consider us to be the integrator of the payment systems within Sri Lanka. It gives an advantage to them as well, because once they integrate with us, the entire banking sector gets open to them. Otherwise, they have to individually integrate with different banks. So we are now seen as the point when it comes to Sri Lanka for the international players also to come in and integrate.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. So
one of the reasons actually for that is we are fully regulated by central bank.
Yes.
Right? And we are a legitimate entity. In that sense, they are actually comfortable in working with an organization like us and enabling this. So they know that if they connect with us, they will not also be in trouble, because they are actually working with a legitimate organization which is actually governed by the international best practices. Payment is only one segment. So we have also actually implemented digital signatures, where you can actually transact documents digitally signed across countries, within the country, and so on, right? So in that sense, we have actually filled that other requirement also, where you, in addition to a payment, because payment is a part of a product where you need to raise the purchase order, invoice, and all that. So if payment is digital, all the others are manual, then there's no efficiency. So now they have the option of actually raising all these digitally, electronically, and digitally signing, even cross-border, and also do the payment transaction. Then the entire process becomes seamless. So that is again another piece. So we are actually in the process of getting international certification for our digital signatures, which is called Web Trust. Once that is done, all the international contracts, international documents can also be digitally signed and shared. So that's also again our part of journey of going international, because that again otherwise becomes a roadblock.
Definitely. I'm very excited to see this next step for you. Now with 10 very successful years under your belt, can you tell us what the next decade has in store for LankaPay?
The main purpose for us, one is financial inclusivity. So we would be the happiest if we have 30% of the cash transaction moving into digital. Right? We have not seen that yet. I mean, we are on the way there. We have not seen that. But I think having said that, I think we have come a decent way. If you really look at the numbers that are happening in terms of digital, payments bulletin of Central Bank, the document that has all the numbers, which actually basically, according to that, the real-time payments last calendar year, we have actually done real-time payments to the value of 37% of GDP of Sri Lanka, right? So it's not a small number. I mean, it's something that you can, piggyback on, right? And if you really look at the total value of transactions that are going through all our systems, it's nearly 25 trillion, which is pretty much, the GDP of Sri Lanka. Even though people do not really see that digital getting adopted, actually it is getting adopted. It may not be the retail segment, it may not be the rural segment, but we are seeing a lot of people adopting, right? Even international, right? So I think we are on the right track. It's just that, you can't boil the ocean in one day, right? So you have to go step by step. But once we start bringing all these different components like the government payments, making payments to rural departments, getting all the rural merchants on board, and making people aware and also comfortable in doing digital and so on, and then we will go the next step. And also we are also addressing another issue. When you go more and more digital, there are lots of frauds that are also coming through, right? Majority of the frauds have happened where the consumer has gone and shared the one-time password, the OTP that comes from via SMS with a stranger, right? And that is the password for his bank account, right? So when you do that, obviously somebody is going to withdraw your money. So so we are actually starting a campaign, asking people to go digital on one side and also to do it responsibly and also safely. For example, if you go and give your ATM card to somebody and the PIN also to that same person, obviously that person is going to take your money and go, right? And some people may be doing it without knowledge, but the thing is more and more awareness creation, because we don't want people to go back to cash. When we more and more go digital and when more and more fraudsters come into market, if they move back to cash, then the whole purpose is lost. So we want people to start adopting digital first, but then do it responsibly and safely so that they get the actual benefit rather than not becoming a victim of another fraudster, right? So our responsibility is to bring all this ecosystem together, the banks, financial institutions, fintechs, consumers, businesses, government, into a single network where they can do easily seamless transactions. So our purpose is a much bigger purpose of actually getting entire Sri Lanka into digital, right? Not just one segment of the Western province, and also connect the country to international. So it's a much bigger purpose. Hopefully we'll succeed in the near future.
I believe, like Channa said, that our main focus challenge would be financial inclusivity. I'm sure 80% of our population lives rural. So to take the awareness, the benefits of digital payments to the rural sector would be one of our biggest challenges, and that would be something we would be focusing on in the coming years. Something of noteworthy is the confidence the government of Sri Lanka has placed on us. In his 2023 budget speech, His Excellency the President said, by March 2024, all government organizations should have the capability to receive digital payments or online payments. And then the Ministry of Technology reached out to us to implement a system to facilitate those payments. So we have not been merely a player in the payment space, but we have been giving solutions to the government, to the businesses, to the SMEs. I believe we have a good portfolio of products. Now the next coming years would be how we take this to the masses and get people to embrace digital payments.
Most definitely, and all the very best with that vision of yours. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today. And our venue partner today is Radisson Colombo. Located in the heart of the city, Radisson is an urban hotel with unmatched views of the Indian Ocean and Colombo cityscape, offering well-appointed rooms, multi-cuisine restaurants, and functional meeting and event spaces.